Why do we keep bullshitting ourselves? Join us at Being Common Makes No Sense podcast, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Join Amali Cabral at 515-604-9537. It's 515-604-9537. Enter 390-994. 390-994 to enter. Visit us at www.cslawinfo.us. Call in now. Welcome back. I'm your host, the Alpha, Amali Cabral. Welcome back to the Being Common Makes No Sense show, Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. The dial-in number is 515-604-9537. It's 515-604-9537. To enter, you just press 390-994, 390-994. You can also message us on Skype. It's CS Law Info. Again, you can send a message to our Skype page. It's CS Law Info. I am the author of Bailout of the Legal Matrix. It's an audiobook intro. It's live on YouTube on our channel. Order it now. You can go there, hear the free excerpt. I guarantee you won't be disappointed, and you'll be contacting us to get your copy. If you've used Common Sense Inc. and CS Law Info services, please leave a review on our Live Big Publishing Facebook page. And you can find this on our website at www.cslawinfo.us. It's www.cslawinfo.us. Now, I was thinking before the show started, I was honestly thinking about coming in like this, and dial in at 515-604-9537 to enter 390994. I remember growing up, there was a guy called Casey Kasem. I don't know if it was 100 top reviews, or I forget all that stuff. But I just remember he had a voice like this, and it was super annoying. I honestly couldn't stand it. I couldn't wait till he just got to the damn songs, you know. It seemed like the guy was more in love with his voice than the music that he was supposed to be playing. And I know there's a lot of you Casey Kasem junkies out there, but I wasn't a fan. So let's get down to business. First, we're going to start with the news. See, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I am jumping ahead of myself. The reason why I'm jumping ahead of myself is I'm looking for my notes. Oh, here we go. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Common Sense Inc. and CS Law Info, for sponsoring the Being Common Makes No Sense show. I'd also like to thank our clients, our many, 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 many clients, the men and women who are brave and courageous enough to deal with our services, especially with our right to travel IDs. We thank you for your support, and we look forward to dealing with you and communicating with you and possibly meeting you in the future. Okay, so today's show ties in with last week's show where I was speaking a little bit about, does the law exist? And if it does exist, how does it apply to you and I? So this week's show is going to deal with logical fallacies. And for those of you who don't know what a logical fallacy is, as I explained in the last show, that a logical fallacy is, for example, you ask somebody for some sort of proof or evidence, and they point to something immaterial, or they point to something that hasn't been proven as fact. So the easiest way I can tell you folks this is, if you've ever gotten into a discussion with somebody that believes in religious ideologies, and you ask them for proof, I'm just going to deal with the Christians right now because I was a Christian at one time. Thank God I got out. But you ask them for proof that the God that they believe in exists, you're going to get a bunch of opinions and beliefs. And you're going to get no factual evidence other than what has supposedly been created like a tree, which doesn't prove that anyone or anything created it that lives up in the sky or in the heavens. This is a logical fallacy. Unlike if I need to know a certain type of food that's going to generate a certain type of percentage of fat within my body, I have nutritional facts on the back of every product in most stores in the United States of America. Now, how does this deal with the law? We're going to get into that. But first, I'd like to go over and read this article to you that I came across during this week. And the article deals with, you could find it at Yahoo News. It was printed by the Associated Press by Matthew Baharkat. I believe I'm saying that right. Matthew Baharkat. Associated Press, May 26, 2017. Federal judge tosses out life sentences for D.C. sniper Malvo. McLean, Virginia. A federal judge on Friday tossed out 2 life sentences for one of Virginia's most notorious criminals, sniper Lee Boyd Malvo, and ordered Virginia courts to hold new sentencing hearings. In his ruling, U.S. District Judge Raymond Jackson in Norfolk said Malvo was entitled to new sentencing hearings after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for juveniles are unconstitutional. Malvo was 17 when he was arrested in 2002 for a series of shootings that killed 10 people and wounded 3 over a 3-week span in Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, causing widespread fear throughout the region. His accomplice, John Allen Muhammad, was executed in 2009. Malvo also was sentenced to life in prison in Maryland for the murders that occurred there. But his lawyers have made an appeal on similar grounds in that state. A hearing is scheduled in June. Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Moreau, who helped prosecute Malvo in 2003, said the Virginia Attorney General can appeal Jackson's ruling. If not, Moreau said he would pursue another life sentence, saying he believes Malvo meets the criteria for a harsh sentence. Michael Kelly, spokesman for Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring, said Friday evening that the office is reviewing the decision and will do everything possible, including a possible appeal, to make sure this convicted mass murderer serves the life sentences that were originally imposed, end quote. He also noted that the convictions themselves stand and emphasized that even if Malvo gets a new sentencing hearing, he could still be resentenced to a life term. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional. Then last year, the Supreme Court applied that case retroactively to sentences issued before 2012. Malvo's first trial took place in Chesapeake after a judge agreed to move it from Fairfax because of pre-trial publicity. A jury convicted Malvo of capital murder for the slaying of FBI analyst Linda Franklin, who was shot in the head outside a Home Depot store. Under Virginia law, capital murder conviction requires either a death sentence or life without parole. Prosecutors sought a death sentence, but a jury opted for life in prison. Malvo then negotiated a plea bargain in Spotsylvania County and agreed to a life sentence and waived his appeal rights. That's a hell of a name, Spotsylvania. The Attorney General's office argued unsuccessfully that the Supreme Court ruling should not apply to Malvo to begin with. While the jury in Chesapeake had only the option of a death penalty or life without parole, the capital murder statute required them to make specific findings about Malvo, including a conclusion that he possesses a future danger. The state argued that the jury's findings provide the kind of individualized assessment that the Supreme Court requires to sentence a juvenile to life in prison. The state also argued that Malvo knowingly waived his appeal rights when he struck the plea bargain in Spotsylvania County. Jackson, in his ruling, wrote that Malvo was entitled to a new sentencing hearing because the Supreme Court's ruling grants new rights to juveniles that Malvo didn't know he had when he agreed to the plea bargain. Cheryl Shaw, whose father, Jerry Taylor, was shot and killed by Muhammad and Malvo in March 2002 in Tucson, Arizona, and one of several killings that preceded the sniper shootings in the D.C. region, said the news that Malvo could potentially be released at a future date was an unpleasant shock. I was at peace knowing Muhammad was executed and Malvo was serving life without parole. I was able to move on with my life, she said. But if he's going to be let out in my lifetime, I'm not comfortable with that. She said she has forgiven Malvo and knows that he was brainwashed by the older imposing Muhammad, but he knew the difference between right and wrong. Malvo has been serving the sentence at Red Onion State Prison in Southwest Virginia. So, when we come back from the break, what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into this article here.
Being common makes no sense, so why do we keep bullshitting ourselves? Join us at Being Common Makes No Sense podcast, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Join Amali Cabral at 515-604-9537. It's 515-604-9537. 537. Enter 390-994, 390-994 to enter. Visit us at www.cslawinfo.us. Call in now.
Back Tuesday, May 30th. Just read an article about Lee Boyd Malvo, the young boy that accompanied John Al Muhammad when they went on their sniper escapade on the East Coast there. They actually made a movie. I can't remember the movie title at the moment, but they actually made a movie that was halfway decent, documenting why and how this whole experience got started for Lee Boyd Malvo. And it turns out he was just another insecure, fatherless, African living in America who came across an older male that seemed confident, strong, disciplined, regimented, everything he wasn't and he was trying to aspire to. So he quickly came under this man's influence, okay? But that's besides the point. Now, most people look at this article and look at the details and look at the appeals process and look at why he did it and look at how much time he's already spent in prison and so on and so forth. The reason why I brought up this article today and the extremities of it is to point out after all of what actually happened, which is very tragic, which is heartbreaking, of course, for the families on both sides. But the point is, does the law exist? Does the law exist, and does it apply to Lee Boyd Malvo? Now, there's many out there that's listening that would argue with me, that would say, well, this guy is a killer. He's now a guy. At the time he was a 17-year-old boy. But now he's a man. He's a killer. He should be executed like Muhammad, or he should spend the rest of his life in prison. Like the woman at the end of the article said, even though she's forgiven him, she would be fearful if he was let out. Okay, all these things do not produce any type of facts of, does Virginia have the authority to keep holding this man in prison? You don't see any of that in the article. You see where the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that its mandatory life sentences for juveniles are unconstitutional. But as I explained last week, in last week's podcast, that the Constitution is but a piece of paper. That's all it is. If the Constitution held any type of weight or any type of real authority, when people go out there and they film the police, they wouldn't be harassed. They wouldn't even be detained or arrested, matter of fact. And by the way, I recommend to anybody listening to go on YouTube and watch people like the Batusi or High Desert Community Watch or the Pissed Off Taxpayer or the Californian Guardian. These are all auditors or cop watchers, cop blockers, or cop monitors that go out every day, spend their time trying to educate you and showing you how these people that have taken the oath, it's not the cop watchers or the auditors who've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, it's the public servants that have taken oath, and they break it all the time. So when I read that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for juveniles are unconstitutional, that means nothing to me. See, to most people, it would mean, well, that's not good. They're going against it. But like I said, the Constitution's irrelevant at this point. It was made hundreds of years ago by men that were prior slaveholders. So the Constitution didn't even apply to everybody today. And you have people today that back 200 years ago would be slaves believing in this Constitution, which is a whole other topic for another time. So I want to know, where in this article does it say that just because Lee Boyd Malvo resided in Virginia or Maryland, wherever, it doesn't matter what state, wherever he resided, does the law apply to him still, or did it back then? And where's the evidence for that? And people say, well, the evidence is they took lives. I understand that. I totally understand that. But you have to understand something also. If we're going to play a logical game, which is really an illogical game, which I'm going to get to pretty soon with logical fallacies, but if we're going to play by their game and their rules, then we got to play it 100%. There's no cheating here. There isn't, well, if this person does this, then this automatically makes them guilty. Supposedly, if you're a citizen of this country, you're supposed to have certain rights, right? Okay, it's not like prior to U.S. history where if a man killed a man, he was hung. Game over, done. Which I'm not against. An eye for an eye, I'm very much for. But right now, we're not dealing with that type of system. That's why you have people like Charles Manson that are still alive in prison. You understand? So when the Virginia Attorney General and Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney Ray Moreau says that they're going to go for another appeal to impose his life sentences, Lee Boyd Malvo's best defense is to challenge the courts at a trial on if there's any evidence that their laws apply to him, just because he resides or he resided in one of these states at the time. But I can guarantee Lee Boyd Malvo's, whoever's representing him, is never going to bring that up. Because as I've said in the past, if they were to challenge the very people that are feeding them, of course they would be cut off, right? They'd lose their bar card. They'd lose their privilege. So that will never happen. But hypothetically, after reading this article, where is the evidence that these life sentences apply to Lee Boyd Malvo, other than some emotional rhetoric? And there is none. There is no evidence Okay? The only evidence that applies in these cases are force and coercion. So, for example, if John Al Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo did not surrender, they would have been shot and killed. And just the very action of shooting someone is taking deadly force. That's what they call it. Using deadly force is shooting someone and killing them. So we're right back to force and coercion. And it's mind-boggling because in the system that we're in, it makes you believe that they're the good guys, that they're doing everything right, when in reality, they're no different than any one of us out there when they get angry and want their way. The only difference is we don't go out and shoot people. We don't go out and kidnap people or arrest them. We don't go out and extort people or take their money unwillingly. Why? Because there's something inherent in all of us, or most of us, that we don't want other people to do to us that we wouldn't do to them, right? But if you've ever stepped foot into a courtroom, you notice a lot of these people get off. It's like a sadist type of scenario where the higher the charge, the more excitement it generates within these people. And the people I'm speaking about are the judges, the prosecutors. It's a intense power. And you hear this old adage, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there was a time where I didn't really believe in that. I didn't really subscribe to the whole power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I didn't subscribe to that. But the more and more I became educated and started looking deeper to what was really going on within our own judicial system here, I began to see what that old phrase meant. When you're giving a sanction or giving an order, most people will follow it, whether it goes against their very nature or not. I was speaking to an ex-military veteran, or I should say soldier. He's still a veteran, but an ex-military soldier. And he told me when he was in the heat of battle in Afghanistan that sometimes your partner or the comrade that's next to you goes into a shock. They call it shell shock. You literally have to slap them or hit them to snap them out of it. Okay. And that's similar to what's going on with us. These people are of a mindset that they can oppose any type of will that they generate within themselves onto each and every one of us just because they have the power to do so. And if any one of us snaps out of this trance that they have us all in, we're going to get smacked right back into the system, as they call it. So whether it's your traffic tickets where you have to pay fines or all the way up to you're facing some serious felonious charges, either way, the road leads back to putting money in their pocket. Either way, whether you're a body inside there or you're a body on the outside, it's always meant to benefit them. So I just want to read over this article. I wanted to share it with you. I wanted to share the extremity of it, that it still doesn't matter. They still have to have evidence. So it doesn't matter if it's your traffic ticket. A lot of you have traffic tickets or misdemeanors. It does not matter. It still stands. The logic of it doesn't change. If I'm being accused of something, where's the evidence that you're proof to impose any type of punishment or authoritative action on me without doing it with force? And if you are using force, just admit you are using force, because I would respect that more than if you're going to sit here and lie to me and throw this moral guilt trip in front of me, which they usually do. So after this break, we're going to come back, and I'm going to jump right into logical fallacies.
No, being common makes no sense. So why do we keep bullshitting ourselves? Join us at Being Common Makes No Sense podcast, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Join Amali Cabral at 515-604-9537. It's 515-604-9537. Enter 390-994. 390-994 to enter. Visit us at www.cslawinfo.us. Call in now.
I'm your host, the Alpha, Amali Cabral. Dial-in number is 515-604-9537 to enter 390-994. So what is a logical fallacy? Well, there's a great website you can go to. It's called Thou Shall Not Commit Logical Fallacies. What is logic? Something that makes sense. With a fallacy, something that is not true, not real, fantasy, fake. Okay. So what we're going to go over here is a few common logical fallacies that are used within the court systems today. And like I said, you can just Google "Thou shalt not commit logical fallacies," and it'll pop up, and you can check it out. And it's got a bunch of them on there with the definitions, and you can use it as a reference next time you get into debate with somebody or an argument. Again, once you learn what the logical fallacies are and how common they are and how often people use them, like one of them is ad hominems, which means to just directly attack somebody when you've run out of basically comebacks or answers, or you just don't want to admit you don't know, so then you start attacking the person's character. That's one of the most common logical fallacies. Okay. Then you have the circular reasoning, where again, for instance, I'll give an example. One time when I was up at the Clara Shortridge Foltz Courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, I was speaking to an attorney there. She was telling me that the law applies to me just because. I mean, she literally said this to me. She said that the law exists because we say it exists. And I was like, really? And where is that? Where's the evidence for that? She said it's in one of our code books, right? I said, do you have the code book on you? She said, yeah, it's in the back room over there. Can you bring it over here? Well, I can't bring it over here. So I asked her again, within that code book, if you give me the title and I go look it up on my own, it's going to tell me the laws exist because you say so and therefore it applies to me because I'm in your state? And she said, yes. That's called circular reasoning. Pointing to something else outside of the logical answer or the logical evidence or material evidence that's in front of you to prove what you're saying is a fact. And it's no different with, if you want to take religions, the Bible is a great one. It's a real great one. When you ask somebody in the Bible, where's the evidence that the Bible is the authority on all other deities, they turn to 1 John, right, with the Word. The Word created all. Okay, they go right back to the book that they're grabbing their beliefs from instead of going out and grabbing multifarious different sources or peer-reviewed sources. This is what scientists do. This is what medical professionals do. This is what everybody else does that has some sort of factual authority in our life, is they don't depend on their own beliefs or their own words. They go and they reference at least 3 other people from different backgrounds who are saying the same thing as them. Then it becomes a fact. So I could go outside right now and I could ask somebody, do you believe in grass? And whether they believe in it or not, it doesn't matter. But can we see the grass? Yes. Can I pull 3 people over and say, do you see the green grass there? They can say yes. Now, if some of them say no, well, we know they're lying. But most evidence is based on our physical senses. Because if you can't physically experience or sense or measure or compute, if you can't tangibly focus on something, how do you know it really exists outside of what the person's telling you? Another favorite one that people love to use is the burden of proof, saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove. So a logical fallacy is a flaw in reasoning. So here's a court system built on you're innocent until proven guilty. But you and I know when you walk into the courthouse today, it feels like you're guilty, and now you're proving your innocence. So if I'm accusing Johnny of taking my lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I could have proof that he's doing that when I go and tell the principal, else I could get in trouble. But see, in a courtroom, they can accuse you of anything all they want, and they actually believe they don't have to prove it. So this does not make any sense. Most people don't go around accusing people of things unless they have proof, because you don't want to look like an idiot. But somehow our government has no problem looking like an idiot, as long as they're making idiot money, which is a lot more than you and I. Another one is a loaded question, asking a question that has presumption built into it so that it can't be answered without appearing guilty. So a common one is with our right to travel, this is a great one. Everyone has the right to travel. There is no law saying you cannot travel from point A to point B, whether you're in a plane, whether you're in an automobile, whether you're walking, does not matter. However, if you go out there making money with your automobile, you have to have a license, just like a carpenter, just like a doctor, just like any other profession. But if you're going from grandma's house to your house, from your girlfriend's house to your house, you have every right to travel. And the Supreme Court cases to back that up. However, you get into a courtroom and they try to trick you and say your license was suspended. Was it not? It was. You were driving without a license. Yes, I was. Therefore, you must be guilty. Never bring up the fact that you always have a right to travel. It is not a privilege. So you have to watch for these things. You have to watch for the loaded questions. Another one that they often use is ambiguity. And this is a biggie. ambiguity. It's using double meanings or ambiguities of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. So vagueness is going to be used a lot. Vagueness. Doublespeak. The law applies to you and not I. In this scenario, the Constitution applies to you but not I. In this scenario, this is used a lot in the courtroom. For example, you get up there, the judge asks you, do you understand the nature and the charges that are brought against you? Most people said yes, they do. But this has a double meaning. Once you agree that you do, it's game over. Now you've wholeheartedly allowed them to take authority over you or jurisdiction over you. It's a double meaning. It's a double question. Actually, it's ambiguity and a loaded question mixed in one. And this is stuff they all learn in the Socratic method while they're going through law school. So this comes directly from it. Special pleading, moving the goalposts, or making up exceptions when a claim is shown to be false. Sir, do you have empirical evidence that just because I reside in the state of California that your laws exist and they apply to me? Well, the laws exist because you see that prison behind you? Or the laws exist because you're in my courtroom, aren't you? No, I'm in your courtroom because you're using force and coercion. If I don't come into your courtroom today, you're going to send your goons out tomorrow to come get me. Or eventually they'll come get me and kidnap me. And I'll be forced to come to your courthouse eventually. That's why I'm here. Okay? Sir, do you have empirical evidence that just because I reside in the state of California that your laws exist and they apply to me? Well, they apply because I said they apply. This is a claim that is false because the judge cannot be playing the lawyer from the bench. Do you understand? He's not the lawyer. He is not the prosecution. If he starts doing that, it is called a mistrial. Case dismissed. The slippery slope, asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z will consequently happen too. Therefore, A should not happen. Well, if we just dismiss your case, then we're going to have to dismiss everybody else's case in here because we don't have any evidence that the law exists, and it applies to any one of you. The slippery slope. The fallacy. The fallacy. Presuming that because a claim has been poorly argued or a fallacy has been made, that the claim itself must be wrong. This is where you need to have evidence and facts. Because you got a lot of sovereign citizens, you got a lot of common laws, you got a lot of patriots, you got a lot of whatevers are trying to argue these people down and make mistakes. And once the mistake is made, they jump on you like a swarm of bees or a pack of dogs. So this is why we don't advocate people go in there and start arguments with people. We advocate you go in there and end the argument right from the beginning by not even starting it, by asking questions. Simple, concrete, concise questions, and not budging from that stance. If the jab's working, keep using it. Most of you have heard of the straw man, misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. This happens all the time in the courtrooms. I'm not going to go much into this. There's a lot of logical fallacies here on this website. Okay, so earlier I was talking about the circular reasoning argument. This was called begging the question, a circular argument in which the conclusion is included in the premise. So again, you broke the law because you didn't follow some code or statute that we said for you to follow. Even though there's no evidence for you to follow this outside of force or coercion, the point is you did not follow it, so therefore you broke the law. Begging the question, folks. Instead of you asking the questions, now you're begging. You're begging for a deal. The no true Scotsman, making what could be called an appeal to purity as a way to dismiss relevant making what could be called an appeal to purity as a way to dismiss relevant criticisms or flaws of an argument. This one is how the system is able to function day in and day out for this long, because most of the population in this country, and I would say all over the world when it comes to most governments, believe in morals and morality. They believe that if you don't subscribe and follow the government and what they say, even how crazy it may sound, that somehow they're wrong. And this is a lie, this is fake, and it's not true. I want you to Google malum in se. Malum in se, it's Latin. It's M-A-L-U-M-I-N-S-E. It means wrong or evil in itself, wrong by nature. So, for example, murder, rape, theft, so on and so forth. Then you have malum prohibitum. Malum prohibitum, again Latin, spelled M-A-L-U-M-P-R-O-H-I-B-I-T-U-M. Malum prohibitum. And it means crimes are criminal not because they are inherently bad, they are just prohibited by the state or statute. For example, the USA requires drivers to drive on the right side of the road. This is not because the left side is immoral. But remember that the next time you're in a courtroom. You're not a bad person just because you're called or subpoenaed or taken in on a warrant in the court. See, morals are a personal asset to every person on the planet. They're based off of perception, perspective. This is why I've said before, I don't believe or subscribe to what's bad or what's good. Because most of the time, the person that's calling something bad or good is outside of my own head. It's another person. So what might be bad and good for that person might be good and bad for me. It might be the exact opposite. So why would I follow them? This is the same thing with morals. Morals are based off of this perspective, which is based on perception, how one is raised, on what is good and bad. So, when the no true Scotsman comes up, the court systems like to bring in the guilt trip. I mean, that's the whole name of the game. If anybody who's listening is a boxing fan, and even if you're not a boxing fan, most people have heard of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, out of his own mouth, said most of his fights were won off of intimidation. If you learn how to intimidate people, most of the fight will be taken out of them by the time you have to get physical. Now, not to take away, I would never want to have to fight Mike Tyson. I would definitely run before that time would happen. I'm not an idiot. However, I understand what he's talking about. When people are in fear, they will do a lot of things they normally wouldn't do when they were using common sense or using their own logic. So if I get summoned into court to pay a traffic ticket that's $200 and they're threatening to take my license away if I don't give them money, I mean, the common sense would go out of my mind. Not me, but let's just say I'm that person that it would go out some, and I would pay them. Because inside my head, I feel like, well, if I pay them the money, maybe they'll leave me alone faster, which isn't true. Because when people hold other people for ransom and a negotiator comes in, they might give them the money for the ransom that they requested, but most times they know they're going to get that money back. It's just a bargaining tool. Except in your case, you'll never see that money again. The money that you needed to pay your next light bill or put food on the table for your children, you'll never see that again. All for something that wasn't even a crime to begin with. It was a hypothetical. You might have committed a crime. So now we're back to the movie The Minority Report. Right? Thought crime. But yeah, the United States judicial system is based off of this whole appeal to purity or morals. And that somehow you're a terrible person if you don't follow one single rule that they force on you. And this is simply not true, because not everybody is treated equal. It's been proven and shown over and over, the more money you have in this country, the less you have to follow their rules. Or if you even break their rules, the less punishment will be inflicted on you, unless they want to make an example out of you. So it's very good to understand about these logical fallacies. And on a side note, before we end here today, I would like to say that this is a great way to win a lot of arguments or debates outside of the courtroom. There's a lot of people walking around unconscious to how they're speaking and talking to you, and they're using logical fallacies all the time. The one that I hear most of the time, like I said before, is the ad hominem or the circular reasoning. Well, so-and-so said it's true, so it must be true. Or since I don't know and my ego's too big to tell you that I don't know, I'm just going to attack your character because it's a lot easier. And it'll make me feel better instead of feeling bad that I don't know something that I thought that I should know. So these are the most common ones, the ad hominems and the circular reasoning. But all these other logical fallacies you can use. And like I said, a logical fallacy is a flaw in reasoning. Logical fallacies are like tricks or illusions of thought. And they are often very sneakily used by our politicians, by our public servants, by police, by officers of the court, by government, by the media, by the higher echelon of the society, to fool people. To fool people. And Forcing somebody to give you money without evidence would make you a fool. Not fighting and representing yourself willingly would be a fool. I understand there's circumstances where you can't do that, don't get me wrong, but 9 times out of 10, if it's just a simple traffic ticket, you're not facing any type of loss of freedom, why wouldn't you fight it? Why wouldn't you fight it? Especially if you're a man. Be a man. Why wouldn't you? I mean, first of all, what man could spare any money as it is in this day and age? I mean, seriously, can you afford to take $200 out of your pocket and just give it to a total stranger? Well, if you can't do that, why are you giving it to them willingly? So if it's a traffic ticket or something very minor, a fine or whatever, just fight it. Take it all the way to trial. Challenge them on the purity aspect. Challenge them on the evidence aspect of the law. Challenge them. Because it doesn't make any sense for you not to. Now, that's something to think about until our next podcast, which will be next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Again, I'm your host, Amali Cabral. And until then, take care. Peace.
Yeah. Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government does not give a fuck about them. Government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It simply doesn't give a fuck about you. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing, keeping it and expanding it wherever possible.
No, being common makes no sense. So why do we keep bullshitting ourselves? Join us at Being Common Makes No Sense podcast, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Join Amali Cabral at 515-604-9537. It's 515-604-9537. Enter 390994. 390-994 to enter. Visit us at www.cslawinfo.us. Call in now. ourselves. Join us